Thank you for tuning back into the Halo Infinite Grifball podcast. We're bringing you episode 11, and this is the preseason edition for Spring League 25 season, which you just had bidding for. And I'm joined by my ever so faithful and loyal co-host Mav. How you doing, man?
Good, good. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. And we have special guests all the time, but we have an extra special guest today. This guy is pillar of the community, innovator. He's been mentoring new players for a long time. He did so in the GGL for a long time with Paradox Warriors. The ever so lovely pastry, Poison Pop Tart. How you doing, man?
Hey, thanks for having me on. I always love talking about Grifball, you know?
Yee, yee. Well, I'm glad I could reunite you two again because I know you're just so excited to be back together, just like you were in season three. I know Mav just had so much fun with that.
Oh
I
yeah,
enjoyed I enjoyed every minute of it.
it was such a great season. Good to have the reunion back.
Fond memories.
All right, so I'm just gonna jump right in here. And the first topic I have, I'm just gonna go ahead and give the floor to Pop Tart for his hot seat edition or whatever you want to call it. But what I have on the outline is Late League and the extraordinary gentleman known as Pop Tart. So, for those who did not know, Pop Tart was actually the creator of Late League. You may have heard some differing lore on that, but Pop Tart absolutely was the one that started. Used to do the shit by hand and all that. So I'll just go ahead and shut up now and give the floor to Pop Tart so he can say, give us some history on all that.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, Late League was it really like the essence of it was like the reason why we put so much effort into it and wanted to create it is just simply because like we kind of wanted like especially during the era that we were at, like so this was in kind of towards the end of the Grifball Hub era. It wasn't quite when it was over yet. Like, you know, Cal and Goose were still, in charge of everything. But things were kind of like starting to stagnate a little bit and always hard to like those periods where custom start stagnating. It's kind of hard to get like hard to give people a reason to start getting on, like especially in between seasons. So like the idea was to create some sort of league that was not the standardized kind of thing that we do within the seasons, and to create something for like individual players to strive for. I know like it's very heavily like adjacent to like I'm a big League of Legends player, and like I've always been big into like kind of things like that where there's like LP systems. I'm a very competitive person, so that was like the big inspiration for it and like what we ended up basing the system off of. But once again, it's just to give players a reason to get on and grind and play the game. I know back then like there was a lot of like late night players, like just like we're talking like midnight players, and so especially for them who had like a hard time being involved within the community consistently, because like most league games are played throughout like the 8 p.m. Eastern to like 10 p.m. Eastern kind of time range. So it's like the most popular times. So it was something that like they could really become heavily invested on. And so that was kind of the idea. That's why we rolled it out. And then yeah, as like Noplex had mentioned, like when we first did this, like we didn't have like a lot of the fancy tech that we've been used to now. Like we were running that off of a Google spreadsheet, punching in the numbers by hand. And I mean, and it pretty much accomplished exactly what I had wanted it to accomplish, at the very beginning. And so, yeah, I mean, we, we ran it through Halo 5. That was like, it was kind of, I feel like it really shifted the cultures of custom games, whether you like, whether for better or worse. I don't think like the view or like the perspective of like custom games had never really like it never shifted back like after that. And it was awesome because like it really it created a like an avenue for like certain players to like rise up the ranks that you normally wouldn't have seen like in like with such a like a fast progression. And I know like you would be able to talk on this more, Noplex, but um, so like I feel like there was a really it was really tough to like really break out as maybe a newer player, or like if you had a if the general like league consensus of you as a player was like a certain way, it was sometimes really hard to like to break out, make a name for yourself, and then like and be seen as like one of those top players. And lately accomplished that like almost immediately, where you're seeing um you know like certain players like losing out a lot, where like you might think it's like you might think this player is such a top of the line guy, where and then he's like losing every single game, and then you see people like immediately like BCN and like KD skill, where it's like you weren't thinking of them too much like within that realm of players, but like they immediately made a really big impact in the league, and then like people started viewing them um in that light, where it's like, oh, maybe we should be focusing on like players like this more. And I think that's like the kind of the culture that it manifested a little bit, because almost immediately it's like BCN was being drafted in pro, KD skill was being drafted in pro, and so that was, I think that was like one of the cooler things that had come out of it, and always had been something that like I wanted to see um, come out of it as well, because you really did get like, Lay League's not perfect, and like nothing should ever be like fully, somebody's skill should like never be spelled out just simply from late league. But it was a very good perspective that was so much different than the perspective that we had before, that gave you a new light on some players. And it's funny because some of those pro players really hated late league, and maybe that's for specific reasons of them losing a lot and like not being in high rank. But it was funny to see those to see those shifts. And then so yeah, I mean, eventually the reins were handed off to A Spence. They did he A Spence did some really cool things with the league. Like I remember he like made these like spreadsheets like more like automatic and stuff. I think he might have had some help with that, if I'm not mistaken. But
I helped him with that for a little while. It was interesting.
cool. Yeah, no. So like, we had like went through different iterations where, it was just like easier to put it together. Because especially compared to like, I think pretty much through the whole time of running it off of like the Google Drive, there pretty much had to be someone there, like monitoring games like through the entire time. So like at least back when I was running it, that meant I was like on almost every there was weeks at a time where I was on almost every single night, sometimes just watching people play Grifball all night, and just putting in my numbers, which was like very nostalgic in its own right. But man, that was quite the grind. But it gave me good opportunities to like really flesh out the system and like get a really on hands view of like how things worked, and it really gave me a good picture of like just like team balancing, where players are at, like how to build comps, which was probably like the most fun part about it. Um, and it was like always a aspiration of like A Spence and my to like create like a website for it. That was something like I had always wanted to do. When we've gotten like close like multiple times, and like I had always wanted just like a really clean looking like leaderboard for it that you could go in, you could see a player's stats, and all of that. And then once again, yeah, I handed off the reins to A Spence. He made some really great improvements to it. Made the sheet automatic, eventually getting Digital Pane to help out with their bot that they made, and to just completely automate it. You don't even have to have an operator there to like assist with every single thing. And then even like doing stats for it, which is really awesome. And so yeah, and like now, we kind of we're in like the present era of late league. I kind of took it back for a little bit, and like, I mean, all I really did was just like create some sort of like structured, kind of season based like aspect to late league, where I think like the biggest like contribution that I had, which really wasn't like much, but was like doing like the circuit series and stuff like that, which is like, I thought those turned out really well, and it would be something that like I like to see in the future. But we'll see what people have planned for it, and now we're kind of we've given the reins off to the modern the present team for it, which is Cosmos, Necessary Evil, and KD Skill, which like they're kind of all really good people who I think will have like a good vision of what the future of Late League might hold, and it'll be exciting to see what they have.
Yeah, it's like you said. Being able to break out as a new player and before bid league was extremely hard. You had to find your click, and if you didn't end up in the right click, you were never going to play with certain players. It's just how it was. You had to be really really good to be able to reach up into those kind of higher echelon groups and be able to play with those people. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and I would definitely agree that late league and league play are two different beasts. Like you play differently in late league than you would in in a league game for some people, especially if you're not in comms. But I would say the player that probably had the biggest impact, or two players I would say that benefited greatly from late league whenever you were doing the circuits and whatnot, was Novice and Spoon, because Novice was more of a hybrid, but he turned into a runner after all that late league. He just was messing around in all the different game types and settings and stuff like that and just figured stuff out, and then now he's a runner. And Spoon
Mhm.
was kind of the same way. He had a really strong showing in late league, and then had a great start of the season in season 3 and made it to playoffs. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a place that like I feel like people almost immediately like viewed it as something that was like ultra competitive, and like also something to like try and push their like skill to the next level. Once again, not everybody views it that way, but like the people that you've seen like really shine in late league and take a lot out of it were those people. And I think like honestly, I feel like even Chemical like is someone like that who like really, they like took late league as a way to like really like sharpen their mechanics, and their personal play. Um, so yeah, I felt like it was always that guy like a really good opportunity for just players to break out where like you wouldn't have necessarily seen that in like regular league play.
I was gonna say, I think Chemical, from just my perspective, took like a massive jump during the sort of late league circuits. So I
Yeah.
felt like he was like a C grade player, and then he went all the way from, I think he was an A grade player last season. I have the stats somewhere around here. Here they are. Okay, he was a B plus last season, so I mean just shy, but he, from my perspective, took like a massive jump in
Oh yeah,
skill.
no, absolutely. Consider like I feel like people at least like talk about him as if he's in like within that like A tier range. High B, and looked like low A tier, which yeah, when a couple seasons ago he was definitely like within that C tier conversation. So like that's somebody who's made massive jumps. I mean, he almost played like 200 games of late league by himself, which is all that's a lot. That's a lot of damn Grifball in like a couple months span.
I would lose my mind. I can only imagine
Yeah,
football.
yeah. But exactly though, like you're giving like, and that's the like the thing that people like really like need to understand like the what like the like kind of the grind culture was before late league and the grind culture after late league, because like it is always kind of difficult to get people to be like hyped about the game, like especially in between seasons until like maybe a couple weeks before the season starts. Whereas like if Lake League's going, it's like you have people going like constantly. Like people do not stop playing the game, and they're just grinding the hell out of it. Not only like are they playing it, but they're like they're trying. They're not trolling or anything. I mean, there's always players that do their own thing, but like um, people take it really seriously, and it was always interesting to it was very interesting from the get-go to see people like shift their mindset on custom games like immediately.
They say once Late League started coming around, I don't really think we've had like. Well, I mean, now that the season's started, I feel like Late League isn't much of a or customs are now more of a thing. But like Late League is sort of trying to think of how the way to put this. Like God, the fuck's the way to put this? It Late League definitely. Here's the way I'm gonna put it. Like Late League definitely helps like boost the season, if that makes any sense. It builds more hype for
Mhm.
it. I think sort of what you said. Like I just from like the signups, like I feel like once Late League's really popping, it just dramatically like makes the season more competitive and fun. It also adds way more competition. I feel like more people sign up. It
Yeah,
just overall Late League sort of like a miracle worker when it comes to just the community altogether.
yeah, because I mean, yeah, like it's tough. It's like a tough sell, right? To like want to sign up for a season that like nobody's like, hey, like some player came back or some player just like jumped into the server and they're interested in playing, but like customs are dead, right? So they're like, okay, like well. Can we get a game going or something, or like there it's just kind of like a dead zone. Everybody's a little bit like burnt out and stuff, and so it's a lot tougher of a sell to get them to sign up for a season when it's like nobody's playing, versus where it's like people are still consistently grinding and like hyped about this situation. And then also it had the benefit of being something to do for players who miss signups or maybe didn't want to commit to a sign up. And like we saw that with Lux. Like he didn't want to sign up for the past couple seasons, but he still jumped in here and there for late league. And then it was also good for me when I took my break last season, where it's like every once in a while it's like, yeah, I'll play a couple games of late league. I got time for that. Um, so I enjoy kind of the culture shift for that, especially like for the benefit of just it being like a not like a non-committal thing that you could still participate in. Because like I am of the mindset that like um, that you don't have to play like someone who like enjoys being a part of the community or enjoys playing the game like. Um, you shouldn't have to like commit all of your time to the game, right? Like you should be able to have the choice to just maybe hop in for a couple of games, see how everybody's doing. And even I think that's like a a better sell to get them to come around, more consistently as well. So yeah.
I would say that it's just as useful having it during a season than off season. I mean, off season is better, of course, because it's like you said, it's a way for people to get in, test out water, see if they like it or not, and be able to grind to get ready for the next season. But during a season, let's say your team's not on and you don't scrim a lot, You can
Yeah.
boot up and you can get into a game of late league, and it's like you said before, it's a any time of day thing. Which I did like the set start times, the 8:30 p.m. Eastern that you did during the circuits. That was really good because it got everybody waiting up to queue and type in that slash sign up. Have it ready like a old Wild West Showdown or something like
Yeah.
that. They're ready to get on it. So it's an amazing retention tool. It's like you said, it's really good for new players. Um, so thank you for
Yeah.
gracing us with
Yeah, of
this.
course. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, it was always something that I would like, always kind of had in the back of my mind at least for a while, and I'm glad that it was just like I guess I'm thankful enough that it was like a good enough, I guess, contribution that it stuck around and it was worth like other people, kind of taking the mantle on that and pushing it forward and even farther than like I honestly could have ever pushed it because like once again, A Spence coordinated so much around it. So and like he took it to the next level, which like I can't be more appreciative of because it is like yeah something that like meant a lot to me, and I'm just glad it didn't die when I died.
Grifball's so dead it can't die. That's the beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am ready to see the bot come back for late league because that's kind of the holdup right now. And I know A Spence is working on it using XSplit or something like that, and he's quite the legend himself. So hopefully it'll be on track for the off season. That way we can get something going because I know Evil's got plans, and I think he was even talking about setting up some circuits and stuff like with what you did. And I'm gonna go right ahead and say it. I honestly think it could be a season format without
Mhm.
a legit season setup with enough players, with 48 active players or 50 people playing every day. Imagine it would just be so crazy. You could have bi-weekly circuits, and you could have the grand finals or whatever the hell it's called and all that. It could definitely work. And then you take out captains, and everybody hates captaining, it seems like. And you take that aspect out of it. To me, that's the biggest part of what makes it good.
Yeah, I mean, that was like I didn't even like realize how like good of like a format that like actually was. Like I feel like that was more of a like just a coincidence than anything of like yeah, people don't want a captain, and like if you just kind of do all the work like for them, create the teams, like it's I mean it still, it still works out pretty well, and it also like becomes like incredibly competitive. Like yeah, the first circuit that we had, like obviously the Ace and Novice fucking powerhouse team, like they swept the tournament, but like that ended up being like an incredibly competitive tournament, and even that was like basically worst case scenario of like what could have happened, and then the second circuit was like that was such a down to the wire experience, and I would love to like that was one of my favorite, so those were some of my favorite games to watch, were the ones in the circuit two, and so like I think I really think people should recreate that format in at least some capacity, and it's like you don't even really need that many people. I mean, both of those tournaments ended up being like around 20 people, and it worked out really well. And I think there's an opportunity for it to expand even further. I mean, it didn't even it didn't even go to what I had really wanted it to, which were the circuits were something that were going to lead into like a bigger finale, like a major circuit. Um, which like in case you weren't like keeping up with that season, the idea was so the circuits were something that you had to qualify for via late league. If the first circuit you had to play like 10 games of late league to qualify for it, and then the second circuit you had to play 20 games of late league to at least to qualify for it. And then that was going to happen, there was going to be like four iterations of that, where like the qualification became a more gradual, and then each year based off of your performance within the circuits gained you like it gained you points, which then would qualify you for the major tournament. So that was going to be like just like an invitational. That if you had a certain amount of points from the circuits that you would get invited to, and then we would run the tournament off of that. And the idea was just that these would be like as even as teams as possible, and like as in like a competitive way as possible. And it would have been really cool if like we had like maybe create if we had mapped this out well enough to have like teams like set in stone, like maybe like a week before or something, the majors, so they just like they have time to scrim and all of that, and sort things out. I think there was a lot of potential for it.
Yeah, it's always good to play more Grifball in any format. I mean, it's always good to have more or another outlet to play. I mean, hell, we used to have 3 leagues, 4 leagues, or two leagues that was every season. So, yeah, shout out to everyone that's put in work for that, and especially Pop Tart for coming up with the idea. And an idea really ain't worth a shit without someone to do it. So, not only did he have the idea, but he had the initiative to actually get it done. And a lot of things like that are big projects, it definitely requires help. So, it's always good to have some people to pitch in and do stuff. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and go to the next topic that we have here, and it's the great game type polls of 2025.
Oh God.
Salute to Deathcrawler. We love it.
Death Polar, for sure. So, there was a few game types that we had, and we ended up just using the one from last season, but there was a couple of different ones. First over there we can talk about briefly is back to basics, which is pretty much only sprint and passing. There's no equipment on the map. There's no thruster, so you could say it's more like a vanilla game type in a way. Closest is resembling Halo 4, I would say. And then what we're on now is more akin to Halo 5 with thrusters and whatnot. So I only got to play it in the Avenger tourney. So that was the only time I played it because I didn't play in the one tourney that Death hosted because I just couldn't make it. So what did you think about that game type, Mav?
I mean, I didn't play a whole lot of like the what do you call it again? The one that's not the rest, the back to basics. Like I didn't play a whole lot of it, but I was gonna say like exactly what you said. It's to me, it's basically like Halo 4, but the hammer's a bit slower. Like I was fine with it either way. I guess I've got to the point of being good enough where I don't care what game type it is, and I'll be good no matter what. So like my perspective on game types is sort of like what I maybe most enjoy having fun, which for me personally would be like maybe thrust. But I don't know, like it was not like a crazy difference to me between the two, except for obviously like not having thrusters. I don't know, maybe after were you playing when we did you test any of those game types? I don't know if you did.
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of testing here and there on some of them.
Yeah, and it definitely was a slower type of game, and then it was a lot of spin tanking and stuff like that. If you missed, you just spun around and ran away, and it definitely made for some longer games with not having
Sounds like
thruster in it.
chemical.
Yeah, it's definitely some long games. So I'm really glad that we can do stuff like that with this game because back in in the previous iterations, it was this is the settings you get in the game. Get fucked, get good, scrub. That's all you get. There's one game type, two game types, but with this game, there's just so many opportunities and so many experiments you can do on Grifball and the game type. I think it's definitely interesting. And the other game type that we tested was a thruster variant that Knockyard had kind of suggested, which is the same as what we have now, except it's 2 thrusts at 50% power, so you could like thrust back and then forward. Basically, you could just use one and bank the other one until it went back up to 2. But unfortunately, it played pretty clean. But unfortunately, people kind of found, I wouldn't say an exploit, but it was kind of like a really annoying tech where you just kind of like bunny hop and then thrust. And then it was just, you could go pretty far, and I think that's one of the main reasons it lost steam.
Yeah, I was actually like a really big fan of the essence of what the double thrust was. It created such an interesting like it created such like an interesting like tanking battles were like really really fascinating with the double thrust just because it was not really good enough to be like a movement tool by any means, but it was like it was just good enough to be like kind of a sidestep or back step kind of mechanic. And it was really neat like being able to like kind of weave into someone's range and then like weave out of it, or like a way that that I really liked using it was like dodging, like kind of baiting someone's hammer swing, dodging out of it, and then immediately dodging back in, and then getting like a free kill from it. That was always fun. And then obviously I think like there was some potential with like the sword as well. But yeah, like I think it just unfortunately like the kind of the dash bug that we had found, just like once a mechanic like, or even like I think some bugs can be really beneficial to an experience, but I think once a bug is so exploited where it just becomes like the norm mechanic for the game, is when it kind of starts teetering on that edge of like just being it just being unhealthy for the game, which ultimately is yeah why it didn't really end up working out.
My only memories of that mode is just watching Novice go from like one end of the map to like the other in like seconds. I mean, like, what the fuck was that? And then watching Ace just like
Yeah.
rust into my face out of nowhere and getting fucked.
Yeah, that's the thing is I feel like I swear the thrust, I could be totally wrong, but it felt like the jump thrust was a longer thrust than a regular thrust, which was wild, but I don't know. I
Only Death would know.
yeah.
Death knows where the sniper is on Sigma Stadium. He knows all the secrets. But it's good to test things out, and it's unfortunate it didn't work out because it was definitely a pretty clean dynamic for tanking. So the other game types that were up for the poll was action season, and even though the Shadow Council kind of muddled very heavily there, it didn't win the poll either time. But as a
I
concept, it seems cool. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it being on the poll anyways, because I actually think that was like the slippery slope that like had brought me back to this season. Because I remember I had voted action season. I was like, yeah, I'm probably not gonna play, so I'm gonna vote action season. It's funny. It's funny because, I mean, get Ace Spence and I together in like a room like like in real life, and we just start spitballing Grifball ideas. And I think action season came from when we were at TwitchCon together. We were talking about like class based Grifball and stuff like that, which I think was like kind of the original, like where the prospect of that game type came up, which would be awesome to see. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we are a long way out from something like that, like really being a serious conversation of what we're gonna do.
My favorite thing about the action season was I voted for it as a joke, and then like 3 minutes later, I got like three DMs from people giving me shit for doing it.
Yeah.
And
I
remember,
mean, that was the thing is like I knew it wasn't gonna work. Once again, I only voted for it just because like there was like three people who voted for it at the time. I was like, yeah, this is between Thruster, Thruster back to basics, but like I'm not, I didn't have intention on playing, so I was like, oh, this is the best non-meme like or best meme to base it on.
it's good to have options, and they were all on there. There were some other ones on there, like a ricochet type game type, where you could throw goals in, but I'm not sure how that would have worked. And with action season, look, man, this game already has so many fucking problems. If we add more variables to
Yeah.
it, it's just gonna break one thing or another, or three things at once. So,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, that's why we didn't do thruster earlier actually, is because of that, is like when we first talked about introducing thrust into the game. Like the game type was just in such a rough space that like the core mechanics of the game just like could not handle thrust. And then that's ultimately why we didn't do it. Even in the second season is when we were originally talking about it. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm glad we kind of like worked out enough kinks for it to be possible because I do think thrust is a really awesome game type, and it really brings me back to the good old days. So um, yeah.
I remember, I think it was like an hour after the first season had ended, we had like already made like a mode with thrusters, but it was so laggy. It was fucking terrible because like people were just teleporting. All the thrust equipment was just on the ground, causing it to be worse. It was
Yeah.
not a fun experience.
Yeah, and I tried to do that stuff in the off season, like during the season three. After season three, I just kind of ran a Halo 4 event, and then I did a thrusters event. It was a Timu Halo 5 rush. That's what I named it, and that was ended up what got people interested in the game type and ended up playing it. So I did the same thing for double thrusters. It sucks that it didn't work out, but it's something people wanted to see. And I was going to do an action season one, but it just the game type wasn't ready. That I really wanted to do that, see how it pan out with class-based Grifball, but I don't know. I feel like most people would have probably chose the same class because seeing the concepts that Ace Spence had, I definitely know which one I would have chose.
Mm.
So, all right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next topic here, and the next topic is just bid hype. It's the best time of season. I just wish we didn't have to play at all. Just bid every week on a new team, and then just and then do the what is it that Ace Spence is working on, like the Griff battles. Just do it in that, so there was no playing involved. Bid every week because it's the best time of the season, and it's all downhill from there.
I mean, I have always been a sucker for like manager simulators. Big fan of there's a game called Esports Simulator. There's
Football manager, whatever it's called.
Godfather or like Esports Godfather or whatever. And I've all like if I had the knowledge, we would have a Grifball management simulator where you manage a Grifball team and like you can recruit like players and like they'll have certain perks and stuff and like they'll all be like historical players, and then you can just simulate a whole Grifball season and like even just like all the intricacies to a Grifball season too. So it's like, yeah, you'll have bidding, you'll have like the drama that's involved in it. Like you'll do you'll do customs for certain players to like level up their stats and stuff. Would love it.
I was gonna say, didn't I know this is like actual life, but didn't we sort of have like a managing type system back in Halo 4? Maybe where you could sort of like have dynasty teams in some way. I could be wrong about that.
Um, at the start of bid league, there was contracts, so you had three contracts. So you could either contract one player for 3 seasons or all three of your players that you got for 1 season. But that was kind of scrapped because not many people utilized it. Some did, but it was just kind of broken. And
It was
once,
broken.
and then
Yeah.
once we figured out how broken it was, we kind of took it off the table. But there used to be fantasy Griffball, which I think might come back someday. That was always good. They did it a lot in the EU league. But the one thing that's closest to what you're talking about is when we did pro and AMI affiliates in Fall League 13, where every pro team had an AMI team that they had to practice with. Like that they were supposed to work with that team, and it was a great idea on paper, except only 2 teams actually did it. And the way it worked is the pro team helped the AMI team practice or whatever, but then the AMI players could sub for pro at any time. That kind of thing, sort of like a farm team. Boss Tycoon would have loved it.
Yeah.
The man who managed two Griffball teams at once.
3.
Oh, three.
Yep.
That guy's sick. Um, yeah, I mean, fantasy Griffball was always cool, and that would be pretty cool if we could see like a bot of some sort that like managed that. Um, yeah, I was always kind of a fan of that, but yeah, that was like has always been so off and on throughout the years.
Yeah, throw it in the suggestion box, I guess. But all right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next one, which is pretty much related to bid hype. This will probably be a pretty lengthy section, and it's preseason rankings and team analysis and breakdown. And I have Lux's rankings that he posted in the Discord, and I'm just gonna go ahead and read through those, and we can kind of discuss how we feel about it and whatnot. He didn't rank his team, but I figure we could kind of like squeeze him in somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So for 14th, he's got Scullin's team, which is Skullin, Spank, Goosler, and Shadow Panda. And Lux says, "Sorry, boys. I feel like we overspent on Spank here. I don't think Skullin has the competitive spirit, and I don't think these last two players bringing up that type of energy in. I don't see Panda anywhere to be found, so I just have to assume he is bottom tier."
Hmm. Um, so like my first off, my preface to like any of my opinions here is that I think the teams so this is like goes just in general, like I think the teams who have like uh kind of the solid players like all across the board do have like a significant advantage over players that have, you know, maybe one or two players that are like still trying to like really grasp the game. Um, so yeah, I guess like my like opinion on it, I don't think they're the worst team by any means. Spank and Skolin alone, I think prevent that, and especially even Goosler, who is like I feel like has been making a lot of improvements since like the last time they played. I think they'll be much better in a much better position than this. And then, you know, we'll see with Panda. I mean, they could have been a grenade, you know, as we're calling them. But you know, there's always the chance that they just get to use a sub that is better than them anyways. So, you know, we'll see with that. But I mean, Spanx, you know, he's been in like kind of a weird position these past couple seasons, but I kind of always have faith that Spank at any moment could coin flip and bring it back. And then, I mean, yeah, if Skull you know does have the capacity for it, they will be like, you know, they will perform very well. Or Skull themselves individually will perform very well.
How much should Spank go for?
A lot.
Uh,
370.
oh shit, he went for more than me.
Yeah. But that was kind of like, you know, there a lot of the values, like honestly, in this bid, especially, they just like they don't translate. Like so, there were so many inflation bids that like I just don't think like it just doesn't like none of them translate to anyone's skill at all because you have like Ducky and Grunt going for 10, you know, while other people are going like, you know, while Risky's going 170. So it's not like it's not a good indication to me of like what someone's value is.
I like to
Yeah.
think they won't be in dead last. This team, we've scrimmed against them, and I think they're a good fringe team. I think they could be competitive enough to compete for a playoff spot. That's just my opinion, though.
I mean, I can
Um,
definitely see this team like it all depends on Panda because I've never seen him play, so like I have no idea if he's bad or not. So like I could see what you're saying. If I know Goosler's gotten a little bit better, so I mean maybe they could be a fringe playoff team. I have no idea. Just the wild card with Panda.
Once again, though, like, and the reason I did want to preface it is that, like, yeah, we have seen, in like in the past seasons that like how detrimental it is to have, like a solid fourth, and so we have. I feel like we have pretty consistently seen teams who have a fourth that is like lacking behind, no matter how good like the rest of the team is. Um, they really like it, you can only be as good as they are as that fourth is. And so if you know, let's say that the other three play well enough, if Panda or their whoever they're playing is just like getting taken advantage of all game, then it is going to be really tough for them to pull out games, especially against some of these other teams who just kind of have solid players all around. and which again I do think like those teams just kind of have an inherent advantage over a lot of like the bottom half of these rankings.
Yeah, the next team that we have is they has them in 13th place. That's Squirrel, Thumping Hawk, or Marvin, Double Ump, and Indices. And Lux says same thing with this team, but at least they have Squirrel and Hawk who can farm bad kids all game and achieve more goals. Ump is an unknown, but at least there's some rumors out there that he's played MCC before. Indices is hopefully the worst player on the squad. I see a few wins, but no playoffs. I do remember Double Ump playing in Reach at in the hub for the GGL. I do remember that, and maybe he played some Halo 4 too on MCC. So yeah, they definitely got the running lockdown on that team.
They stole the runners.
Yeah, I don't really like know what this team like scares me in like the bad way. Like I don't really see a whole lot.
I don't
Uh,
even know who tanks on this team because like I'm assuming Squirrel probably runs.
yeah, I mean that's about like that's all I could really see unless like you have Hawk run and if Squirrel just happens to be I've heard that he can tank pretty well on his own so like maybe you have Hawk run and then you go from there but it is a very confusing team like I really don't know like what their direction is um and I mean, this was actually the team that like I had last, like almost undoubtedly. Like I had no questions about it.
Yeah, I have to agree because like I don't know what you really do. I mean, I mean, Ump hasn't possibly played in more than a decade. I don't know. Has he played customs recently? I've seen him play like
I've never seen
one.
them before.
I have
But,
seen him play one game of Infinite, and he was like not terrible, but it was not okay either. Like he's bad. Not to insult the man's skill, but not great. And this is like again, like he said, hopefully he's the worst player on the squad. I'm very confused with this team. I'm not
yeah,
to.
I think they got yeah. I think Squirrel really just got messed up in bidding here. I mean, they did not have a single person bid on until the last like 10 minutes or 10 to 20 minutes of the
Oh,
bid.
that's who he was. I didn't know who that
Um,
was.
Yeah, and on Hawk was their, their highest bid, which, I heard Hawk, came back to form pretty quickly.
Yeah, Hawk got really
Um,
good really quickly.
but it is scary, especially since Hawk can't even play, I think, until later, like in the season,
He can.
like later
Yeah.
April, if I'm not mistaken.
So
Um,
he updated me on this. I guess
okay.
breaking news for everyone. Hawk, uh, will be back the first week of April, I think.
Well, that's good.
So he'll be back like
Yeah.
week 2 of the
Okay.
season. So like he probably won't miss very many games or like a game at all, depending on how the schedule's worked out. Speaking of the schedule, it's being worked on as we speak. I'm doing it as we're talking.
Mhm.
So
Well, I
he'll
mean,
be back in time.
that is good news for them. I mean, I am still, I feel like there should have been a different player than Hawk as like the second player to this team, right? Like I still think it should have been like one of these heavier hitters than that. Or Squirrel should have focused on creating one of those really high floor teams but once again, I think maybe just something went wrong in bidding on their end. So
Yeah, I say that Hawk probably runs for this team and Squirrel will tank because I don't know who would be the better tank out of the two, but they could always switch it up and change up tempos if they need. Have Squirrel run and Hawk tank. Because I know Hawk can tank. I mean, he was on Mav's team last season. I saw him off ball, and he could tank pretty good. But he was generally the one that they would have run because it probably just made their offense better whenever he run. And he's very good at keeping possession and getting clutch punches. So, um, yeah, I'm with Mav. I don't really know what kind of identity this team has, and they just might get out tanked or something. I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
But next team that we have is number 12, and that's a Daedric's team, or Spotato. It's Spotato, Cosmos, Recharging, and VWS Executioner. And Lux says, this team is so incredibly boring and lacking any real playmaking or X factor that it would be impossible to assume they can win a ship. Cosmos will match up with other top players, asking Recharging to assume the second tank position after his playoff run in Season 4 is a big stretch. At least Daedric is trying to get better, so that is really the reason they got this high. And another unknown being Executioner. Who knows? Maybe this team will get to the playoffs, but I see no chemistry here or anything else besides a Cosmos stamp, and a nerfed one at that. So Cosmos says he's not thrusting all season, and he's just gonna sprint and walk around in tank. So that'll definitely be interesting to see if he can keep up with that. He says he's gonna, and he is kind of a crazy guy that would. So um, yeah, I'm not too sure what this team will end up doing, but I know Daedric had the most credits. So I mean, when you have credits like that, you gotta go for players like Cosmos and Recharging. So I think that's what he's got going for him, and I know he's been playing pretty well. It's just the biggest wild card is Executioner because I don't think he's played, and he was supposed to play in 2 events and just kind of dipped and didn't play. So he's the big question mark.
Yeah, I'll always be a Cosmos stan. And the big benefit that Cosmos does give to this team is just his ability to like work with the players around him and like, bring something out of them as far as like their mechanical skills, assuming like they want to do that. It does seem like Daedric or Spotato, they have like they've been grinding as much as they can. So I could see them, working like on that with Cosmos. And if they do, like once again, if anybody is working with Cosmos, I think their mechanical skill will just inherently go up if they want that to happen, which is a huge benefit to that team. That being said, yeah, like I don't really I don't see much coming from this team. I have heard Executioner it isn't like the worst by any means, and then Daedric, I heard really bad things about them like early on, and then but like during the last couple days of bidding or not bidding, sorry, couple last days of pre-draft, like they made huge improvements. So that is good to see on their end, but yeah, I do think they're going to be in kind of this lower echelon of teams, at least as it stands right now. But I don't think they're stuck there by any means. I think they have one of the like more clearer paths to improvement than some of the others.
I mean, if I don't like, I've never seen Executioner play, so I have like no clue of his skill level. I've played with Daedric though, and he was, I mean, not great. I don't know, like I haven't played with him in a while. I don't really see the reason why he bid on Cosmos because of the whole non-trusting thing. Just really I don't know. His bid philosophy doesn't really make much sense to me since he had 600 credits, but that's just me. I'm not a captain.
No, it didn't make sense to me.
Okay, glad to know I wasn't alone. That's because like I don't know. I feel like he could have made. I obviously know he's not new, isn't he? Because hasn't he played before? Can anyone
I don't think
anyone know
so.
this?
What, Daedric?
Yeah, I thought
No,
he
they
played
played
in Halo 5.
because
Oh,
that's why they were able to be captain this season because they played. Yeah, they did play. But I do agree. Like, I mean, I don't really see why like Sab wasn't just your clear target from the beginning in the draft personally. But obviously their confidence was high enough in Cosmos that that's who they decided that they wanted to go for.
Yeah, I don't know. Just does all around just doesn't make much sense with this team. I don't know. I guess your best hope is that Daedric gets good enough, like maybe to like a C level player, and this team can maybe get to playoffs. I don't know. I just don't have much confidence in this team.
my big question for this team is who runs the ball. And the other question is, can Daedric step up and be a 3? Can Friend step up and be a 2nd? And can Executioner be good enough to be a 4th? But the big question mark is who runs for that team, because I'm not sure.
I would assume it would be Frenzy because when I played with Frenzy the other night, he was like mainly running the ball. He's doing well, so like I would assume it would be him.
Yeah, I've always
Who
kind of
knows?
seen them as like a runner type player.
He has a pretty good sword though.
Yeah, that's why I associate sword players with running the ball. So.
Do we want to go to the next team?
Yeah. Um, So the next team will be my team, and that is me, Sab, Big Al, and Pac Fan. And Lux said, "Sorry, Dad, Plex. Wish I could put you higher, but I've seen Big Al and Pac Fan play, and I don't care if you got one of the greatest players to ever touch the game on your team either. This team is going to get mowed down by most of the squads here. Might need to give Pac the ball, and if he refuses, is Sab going to run? Big Al?" So many questions and no answers. This is basically Daedric's team, except they have returning players, plus Sab, plus some playmaking ability, but it's tiny. So, first of all, Big Al will be our runner. I believe in Big Al redemption arc season. That's what we've been kind of joking about. Um, Pac Fan definitely has a long way to go. He's been improving though. We've been scrimming the last few nights, so he's definitely improved a bit. We've been having him out on the side while we on offense. You know, wherever way we go, he's a flanker. That way he can get some practice out there on his own and try to tie up people and create space and that sort of thing. So it's a pretty good assessment by Lux. So we're pretty much the team that we talked about before, except a little different. But I love these guys. They have a good attitude. Sab's been great. He's been real encouraging and trying to mentor these guys and tell them how to play and stuff like that. I really like the positive energy from this team. So all we can do is practice and go out there and do our best.
Yeah, that's like that's the biggest like props that I will give this team like is that the positivity is definitely there. I've known Big Al for quite some time throughout the league's history at this point, and same with Pac Fan. And they're I think they're always like very easy people to mesh with. And that was actually one of like the biggest compliments I heard about Big Al last season, was that they were always a really positive attitude, and they were always trying their best to improve, get better at the game, learn what they needed to do differently. And so that is the biggest thing I'll give this team, is like that the positivity game is there, and like that does go such a long ways. Obviously it is concerning. Like that is like my biggest thing with like this season, is that as of right now, and it could be different, down the line. But as I see it, is it's 2/4 that you have on your team. But that being said, I think Big Al has made huge improvements, since last season, and they even scrimmed for us last night as our runner, and they played phenomenally for us. So that could totally be me like eating my own words later on, but there is a lot of potential for improvement here. So it's not like it's all lost by any means, but it is. They are the most important pieces of this team, and if you can elevate, their floor, then that's what your season relies on. To me, if you get them to a higher level, that will elevate your success. I don't think you and Sab really even need to do a whole lot. You just need to focus on, helping Big Al and Pac Fan, move forward and learn and be more comfortable with the game. But any team with Sab on it's going to be dangerous. So
I was gonna say Sab, like when he scrimmed you, what, the day after bidding?
Yeah.
I think the day after bidding, like even though we won those scrims, Sab was the biggest pain in the ass, even with, Big Al and Pac Fan being basically fourths. Still with Sab, it was really annoying to play against you. It was just a huge constant pain in the ass trying to remember where he is, making sure that he isn't like flanking behind. It was so fucking annoying. It was like I was playing Sab's team last season all over again.
Yeah, I think the biggest question, it's kind of like with the last team we discussed. Can I be a second? Because I was usually used to be a fourth, and I was expected to play like a third. But now I have to be able to put on some bigger shoes and be an off tank and help Sab stay alive. So can I be a second? Can Big Al step up to be a three and our main runner and keep the ball? And can Pac Fan find his way as a fourth? Find his game. His niche. But the other night when I think we scrimmed Scullin's team, and he was like 100% responsible for a goal because he kind of went off to the side and got a kill. And
Hmm.
then there was another time where he went out to the side and got a trade, and it just the entire middle of the court was wide open, and Big Al just ran right into the middle. So um, it's it's I feel like if some cards fall our way, we could definitely be playoff contenders or eke our way in, but it's a lot of big ifs, that's for sure.
Big Al, big if.
Big if.
Well, the next team that we got is Avengers team, and they would be 10th. And it's Avenger, Deathcrawler, Havoc Puppies, and Diablo. Avenger, with all of his credits, decided not to even touch a player in the B column or above. His best player here being Havoc, or maybe even a debate for it being Death. Regardless, this team is just screams average. Half of these guys don't make customs often, and I don't see Avenger being the best runner behind these three. In fact, as I'm writing this, I'm wondering if I should even have slotted them lower, but Havoc and Death are formidable tanks that have proven to get better as seasons progress. So that's another thing for me is like who runs for this team, and but they're all solid all around. Diablo hasn't played in a few seasons, so he's a bit of a question mark, but. Havoc Puppies was a good streaky tank last season and can get some kills, and Death is just, guy makes the game type. He knows all the secrets.
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, I mean, I think Avenger runs the ball here, but like it's there's nothing that like screams out to me as something that can like uh there's no player on here that can like win you a game or like get a solo goal or something. Their path like to a win is um so strange to me, like, and I don't see them being able to do it without like vast improvements with between Death and Havoc. I mean, I have seen Diablo play in this game before, and I think he was always like within that like D tier range, which the stats aren't everything by any means. They are smart players. Death and Avenger can make some plays, especially if they start doing like some rap stuff. Maybe they'll get some cheese launches off. They do like to do that type of thing, and I'm always a big fan of Avenger led teams. Because Avenger is a very good captain. He has a really good game sense when he is the one taking charge, anyways. That's just throughout my experience, and mostly Halo 5. But like, um, it is it is insane like what a good shot caller will do for a team, and he's always done that very well. I would rank them lower than where they're at, but I mean, anything can happen, I guess. But yeah, it's a lot of a lot of weight on the shoulders of Avenger Death and Havoc for sure. Because there was a lot of other higher value players that were available for Avenger to get. Um, and he settled for this.
He's another captain where I question your bid philosophy because I'm like, he spent what I'm looking at 280 credits on Death. I don't know, maybe Avenger was another captain who like maybe waited too long because like I'm looking at some of the other players and I'm like, you really spent 280 on like Death when you could go out and get like Pop Tart, you get Gingy for 280, you can get Zim for 250. Like I just question why he when with this team. I don't
To
know,
me,
maybe
it's
like
like the Diablo pick more than anything. Like I kind of understand what you're going for in like a death or a havoc like tier player. But I think if that's going to be the strat you're going for, it's like you need every single one of those players to be like really solid. Like they need to have the basic like understanding of this game grasp, which Death and Havoc do, but Diablo does not. And so like there was a lot of other players that went for like really sneaky, who went for very sneaky prices. I mean, you had Grunt and Psyduck both go for 10 credits. And if either of those players replace the Diablo here, um, then this team would be a completely different story. I would have a lot more confidence in a squad like this if he just elevated that 4 spot. He had the credits for it. Um, so I mean, I do think this bid was really weird, and like there was a lot of really weird variables that happened throughout the bid, but I do think something could have changed here to up their chances.
Yeah, that's a really funny way of saying I got fucked continuously in the whole course of bidding. So it's a very, very eloquent way of putting it. But yeah, this is one of those bend but don't break teams, but it'll rely a lot on Diablo stepping up as a fourth. But it's like you're saying, those teams with a lot of rounded players kind of have the advantage in this, in this pool. So, all right, well, I'll move on to the next team, and that'll be ninth place in Encot's team, which is Encot, Snipes, Rain, and Toast. And Luck says Encott has been better than expected. Snipes is back for a revenge season. That Wimpy Deer or Irane seems to improve every season, and he's went from an E minus in his first season to a B last season. Toast is an unknown. Can't put them any higher. If she is solid, this team could be a top four, is what he says. So I know Toast has been playing in some of the customs. Cause I saw I think I saw A Spence's team playing against them. I think they must have scrimmed. But this is another team that's got all the pieces there. I know Encot's most likely going to be running. I know he's a runner, and you got your big tank, you got Snipes, and you got Rain, who's improved a lot. But the thing that I wonder is Snipes and Rain are kind of the same player. They kind of can wander off a little bit sometimes on the tanking line to be a distraction. So that worries me a bit. And then of course Toast being a question mark, but if they get some good luck and things fall into place, this team could definitely make playoffs.
Yeah, I'm always a big fan of like Encott. I think Encott has like a pretty good like mind for the game. To be dramatic about it, with referring to Grifball, but yeah, he's always had like a solid grasp on like how to approach the game, and like I actually think as being someone who has teamed with him, he's a pretty good like shot caller and voice within the team, which once again is such a huge impact that like not a lot of players actually have not a lot of players have that skill down, which I think Encott has it better than a lot. And then I do think Rain is a little bit more like he does have his default play style, but he's a little bit more malleable than I think people might give him credit for. So although like I think right now, maybe there may be a little bit of growing pains with Snipes and his play style. I think they will like kind of co-adapt, because Rain has always he has done a good job throughout all of the seasons that he played, like throughout the many seasons that he's played to be able to kind of be that support player that he always kind of starts to fit in. And then we'll see with Toast. It really just I haven't seen them play a lot, and I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad to hear that they've already gotten playing time in, so that's a good sign.
yeah, this team, in my opinion, retire like almost entirely depends on like Ghost because I have confidence that Endcott will get better enough as a runner to not be like a hindrance, and I have confidence that also that Snipes and Rain will figure out their play style together and be some sort of formidable force. I have no idea with Toast since to my knowledge they've never even played Grifball before. It's a tough one. I just don't know. It could be good. I don't know, like it if like I think Ace Spence is trying to get Toast to, I guess, learn under Cosmos. I'm not sure if that's actually happening or not, but I saw something about that in the chat.
Cosmos should start charging.
Yeah, just charge like
You
20
should
bucks
start
for every
card
lesson.
charging. Yeah.
Well, I kind of ruined that because I've been having him help me mentor players too. So he already did the first for free. Now he's kind of fucked.
I mean, I don't know, like if Toast can be like at least like a D level player, I think this team could make playoffs. I don't know yet. Only time will tell.
Yeah, and then on to the next team, which would be the number 8 team, which would be Novice, Dylan, Trespass, and Risky. And Lux has this to say: Novice and Dylan are definitely a duo, but Trespass and Risky, I have seen nothing from them. Dylan can barely be on at reasonable times anyway, so it's up to Novice to make those two practice, and I don't see it happening. I see a story as old as time where Novice makes playoffs and loses in the semis or the quarterfinals or something. Um, I was on Risky's team in season 3, and he's a hilarious teammate. I was on Trespass's team last season and in season 2, so they can definitely play, but you're not sure what Trespass you're gonna get, and sometimes it's the same with Risky. But they can definitely both have the potential to be fourths. One a third, one a fourth, and Novice and Dylan play really well together. But I just don't know if that team would have enough of a tanking punch. Is my worry, because Novice is going to run, Dylan's going to scum on the weak side, do what he does, and the rest are going to hold the line, and they'll get a lot of goals, I believe. You could set up Novice with a 1v1, even a 2v1, and he's going to win it with thrusters, punch both and get the goal. So. Um, the key is having Novice here because he's just an incredible player.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like Novice by himself. Like, can he can he's the type of player that can just solo win rounds. And so I mean, you will always have that benefit no matter what other three play with him. That being said, like, yeah, I think Novice and Dylan is such a good duo like within this pool of players. And then I mean, yeah, maybe they're like gonna be a little bit on the weaker side, or maybe they're a little bit more inconsistent, but like those two players are not by any means like the worst that you can have. I mean, saw huge improvements from Risky over the past couple seasons, and then I mean, Trespass is on winning teams. I mean, Trespass it always finds his way. On these kind of these better squads. Throughout the seasons that they've played. So it should be interesting. I do love the synergy between Novice and Dylan. I do know Trespass is a little bit of a tilter, so we'll see if how that synergizes with Novice a little bit. I have played with Novice. He has always been a very supportive teammate. Like actually playing on his team. But I could see there being like a timeline where, something wrong is said and then like it totally just, ruins the vibes. But maybe that's why you have PD there. PD is like the vibe check a little bit. Yeah, we'll definitely see. But I think a team with Novice on it will kind of, in my view, will always be it will deserve a place in at least playoff range.
I don't know what version of Novice you played with, but when I played with Novice, he's a completely different person from what you said.
Yeah, that's fair. I have my experience. I know Novice is toxic as heck. But when I play on a team with him, that was a great dude. Great dude.
I want to know what you were smoking because every time I've played with Novice, it was completely different.
Well, we were on a good team, and it was me, him, and Cell. Him, Cell, and Priest. So I don't know. It's just chill squad.
When it comes to this team, like I'm not sure. Like I think they'll probably make playoffs, but like I'm concerned with the taking power because Dylan. I don't know unless like Dylan really improves tanking wise. Like I just don't see this team doing that well, especially with like the tilting. Because if Trespass tilts, and then from my experience of Novice starts to tell and be toxic, this team could fucking implode. Be like nuclear bomb, just it's dead. I don't know. Like I have a lot of concerns and not a lot of faith. That's just me.
That's fair.
I've always had a pretty good experience with Novice. He'll be critical and stuff like that. I just think he likes to pick on you, Mav. He finds his people he likes to pick on and he runs with it.
Well, Novice has said some very inexcusable things to me in DMs that uh you can't really joke about. So I'm a little bit different from joking around. If that's Novice's version of joking, then we might have some problems.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll just go ahead and move on to the next team. Number 7, we have Epic, Shrek, Rage, and Penguin. And Luck says Shrek is a winner, great placements, and many wins under his belt. Combined with Rage's awareness and playmaking, mixed with Epic Beast holding onto the ball, and a fourth who has experience playing Grifball, pretty solid team here. But there are better teams, as we all know. Penguin will have to be a still at 10 for this team to work. Now, I know Penguin played back in AMI during Halo 4, so they definitely have all the built-in awareness and routes and all that stuff, defense. Rage says he's only going to use a sword, but I'm not too sure how much I believe that. I think if he practiced with the hammer, he'd be pretty nasty. I can really agree with that there. He's just the guy to beat right now. 3 championships in a row, won only one of them, but getting there is pretty tough. He's never lost in the first round of the playoffs. He's always made it to the semifinals at least, and that was only once. So, yeah, this team definitely will be looking for a playoff seed.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of this team. I mean, I love the duo of Shrek and Rage. Honestly, that is going to be such a hilarious team to watch if we ever get to see like a, a POV stream or something of that.
I
That's
need the
going to be
comms for that
awesome.
team.
I
I
do.
need
I
the
want the
comms.
comms for that team because that the prospect of Rage and Shrek even interacting is hilarious to me. But yeah, I mean, out of the like. I want to say like the topper echelon of the teams. Like, this is kind of like my like I mean I can't really call them a dark horse, but like they're like my team that like I really want to see like succeed and could be a very just very different than a lot of the other more successful teams. Should be fun to watch. I mean, Rage is a winner. Like that guy, he knows how to win games, and he's also another just a smart player. And I think he'll be really beneficial to the players around him as well.
I mean, if Rage like learns how to use the hammer and is not such a sword stickler, I mean, if he learns and gets good at that, then this team might be number 1. But the problem is like, Penguin I don't think has played in decade.
Yep,
Like from me asking around, I don't think he's played since Halo 4.
it's a
I mean,
decade.
Rage. Okay, so it's been a decade. I mean, he's sort of like an unknown. Has he played Infinite yet? I haven't seen him play. Any of you know?
I have not seen him play, to be honest.
No, I don't think so.
I would hope they get in some scrims pretty soon here. Maybe they have already, but uh, I I don't know with him. He's complete total wild card. Was he good in Halo 4? Maybe you remember?
I mean, no. I mean, like they were like an AMI, like a solid AMI player, but that doesn't mean like that
They're
doesn't mean
bad.
much. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I definitely agree. Like it is they're the weak point, 100%. And as much as the story goes with a lot of these teams like that, I think their success is going to fully rely on how fast that they can get a grasp on this game. Um, but I agree. I also agree to the point to where, yeah, if Rage like does decide to, practice the hammer a little bit, I actually think this hammer suits Rage's tanking style, like really, really well.
Crispy passive.
Um, yeah, I mean, he like Rage's has always been such a good passive tank, and I think passive tanks actually benefit pretty well from this game. Um, that's just my personal opinion, but so yeah, we'll definitely see. But yeah, I agree. Penguin is the big question mark for sure.
Yeah, Rage, whenever he did tank and was in his prime and all that, he kind of tanked like a Sab, a calculated. Not, I really wouldn't call him passive, but kind of more passive than aggressive for sure. But to me, he's just deadly. Like, he just knows them ranges really well. He knows how to just stay just out of your range and clip you whenever you're not paying attention. So, with Epic being an anchor, Shrek's a winner. I think as long as Penguin can just be a body and go neg 20, neg 30, neg 40 every game, this team will be fine. And the next team that we have is number 6, and Mav's going to love talking about this one. It's Necessary Evil, Mav, Ducky, and Demon, and we get to reunite Mav and Ducky from Season 2. I'm sure they're thrilled about that. Lux says, if you're reading this, these top 5 teams were very hard to rate. I might switch these any other day. So why Evil? Mostly because Mav has not been proven to carry a team to a ship and stay focused. I have heard Ducky and Mav have been known to run into mental blocks mid-game. I think Demon will actually be one of the better forts here. And while I do think Mav is good as getting that S tier status, he misses all over the board when it comes to the highest cerebral levels of the game, and no one on this team is there to save him. Get him, Mav.
Why would I care?
I'm just kidding.
Um, I really do. I like this team. It kind of fits the like the criterias of what I see as a successful team this season. Kind of having like somewhat powerful player aligned with players that just have like a solid floor. And I do think Evil Ducky and then Demon has been like he's been catching up very quickly. Um, all of those players have a pretty solid floor. So they kind of fit the formula that I feel that I see as a successful team. Um, so I mean, yeah, I think they'll naturally just be one of the better teams.
I mean, I don't have much to say. It's like we're sort of, in my opinion, like the really, really high floor team. I mean, the ceiling probably depends on how good Demon gets. I've been personally teaching him myself in customs when he's available, and he's been seeming to improve. Maybe have some slight hiccups after I've been like helping him adjust some of his settings. So hopefully he adapts. But I don't know. Like I don't think I have really much to say on my own team because I view it as not like bad. I don't view us as like crazy good. I sort of just view us maybe a little bit above average. That's just from like my own perspective. Is
Yeah,
what it is.
it's too bad you don't have Mr. Above Average on your team because that would be perfect. I think y'all are pretty good. I mean, we scrimmed against you the other night, and you have all the pieces there. Say what you want about Evil, but the guy knows how to build a fucking team. Probably with the steal of the draft with Ducky at 10, he just kind of flew under the radar, and by the time everybody had already secured stuff, he was already gone. So he kind of was one of the few to miss out on that second wave of bid inflation. Because, man, he probably would have went up into the hundreds, 150,
Oh
202,
yeah.
possibly. So,
I
Evil,
yeah, I
go ahead,
I
sorry.
was thinking when Evil sent me a DM, I was coming home from work, and he sent me a DM and he told me how much he got Ducky for. So I was like, what? So I was expecting that we were gonna get like Spank or like one of those maybe like B tier players. Yeah, but unfortunately, Spank got like 370 dropped on him, and Evil told me that he was like a second away from getting me and Spank and Ducky at the same time, but someone stole Spank. So, I mean, so we end up with Demon, I think will be fine. Just maybe a little disappointed for me. Not saying any of my teams are bad.
Yeah, I mean that would have changed everything, that's for
We would have
sure.
been number one in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think so too. But yeah, I mean, all around, I think Evil did do a really good job bidding. Like, I'm always a really big fan of like seeing what player what uh player that shouldn't go for 10 credits, seeing which one of those players you can get for 10, because like almost every bid that we do, that happens. And so like I always like try to like recommend the people just like, dude, slam the tens on those like kind of those like average like lower like those average I guess tier players like those C's, and just see which one you can steal for really cheap. um so yeah, it'll be exciting to see that one.
And at number 5, we have Chemical's team, which is Chemical, Pop Tart, Priest, and Sev. And here's what Lux had to say. Yeah, sorry, Kim. Again, I was going to put you guys at like top 10, no, top 2, but I thought about it. Yes, Priest is better than expected. Yes, Pop Tart is max playmaking and swordplay. And yes, Sev has the most wins in Infinite out of any player and has been shown to make placements often. Something about this team, though, tells me one guy is going to slack in one of these playoff series and it's going to fall apart. And Chemical won't mesh with most of these guys anyway. It's a weird squad here. I know what Chemical was going for. It's a good team, though. Nothing else to say. Uh, Definitely a good team,
Yeah,
and y'all have the playmaking and the running. But if Chemical can't lead tank, I don't know who lead tanks for this team. That would be my biggest worry.
yeah. The nice thing about this team really is just actually, honestly, like Priest is gonna be such like a huge buff to this team, and like it's cool to see it already because like these are kind of the thoughts that like went through my head when like it was first drafted. Because I was like definitely was at least somewhat skeptical at first, especially since like this team really have so heavily relies on Chemical and I to like to step up our game tremendously. Just because like I didn't really feel like I um was going to be like a second player on some of these teams. I was really hoping to be in like that third player slot. But I think it really works out well just because we have a good comp to kind of support each other. Chemical obviously like he is a good player mechanically. Like I don't think there's any doubts around that. And then obviously his weak point is that you know he's kind of doesn't always have all the awareness there. He doesn't always have the positioning there. That is like definitely the biggest detriment that he adds. The nice thing though is that Priest like alleviate, and we've seen this like almost immediately upon playing with each other, is like Priest is so good with his comms that like he is able to really fill those or like improve those weaknesses that Chemical has. Sometimes we'll see like maybe Chemical's not in quite the right spot, so Priest will say like, hey, you got to come over here, and like almost immediately like Chemical's very good at you know switching, churning the switch, and then doing what he needs to do, like when he's directed. And so I love that duality a bit, where Chemical can focus like on his mechanics fully, and then kind of be directed by someone else. So it is very interesting, but I do think that like this team's success will really rely on how good Chemical and myself perform. Like I know I'm like kind of putting a lot of pressure on myself to just step my game up to where it needs to be to make sure we succeed. But all around, high floor. Everyone knows how to play the game. Couldn't be more happy. Couldn't be more happy with that. I love playing with Priest. I haven't been able to play with Sev before, and it's gonna be cool to play with Chemical now too.
Honestly, my from what I've been told, my concern with Chemical was that he doesn't talk. Like he doesn't talk a lot, like very, very, very little. So like I've had discussions with him before bidding, and he actually reached out to me, asked me if I wanted to play with him. And some of the concerns I brought up with him were that I've been told by some people that his communication and every team he's had on communication for that team has been very poor because he's just doesn't talk.
Mm.
So like that was maybe my first concern when I saw you guys, because I know you talk. Like I think with you, Priest, and Sev, you'll be fine. I think it'll balance itself out. So I don't think it'll be as much of an issue. But I mean that's maybe my concern for that team. Maybe
Yeah,
tanking as well, but I who knows? It's yet to be seen.
yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I think that's like a definitely like a valid concern to have, but like that's where I think, and like I even like mentioned that like basically as soon as we like all got into the chat together, it's like Chemical, like you just have you have the mechanical skills, you can even help like some of us, like help us some of us improve mechanically, and like we will fill the gaps that you have, with comms and all of that. And I swear, like I barely even have to say anything. I barely have to do comms because Priest is just there, shot calling the entire game. Which props to him. It is
Priest is
not
a coach.
that is not an easy job to do because like I would say like a lot of my early like really like Halo 4 like Grifball pretty much up until like my like first season into Halo 5 that was like my role was like I'm gonna direct people on where to go. I'm gonna be calling out all of these things. I'm gonna make sure like my positioning's on point, and that is draining. That is such a draining job. So like props to Priest on that. He is like phenomenal on it, and that's always actually why I've really loved Priest as a player is because he's always been that way. So I do think it's just going to be such a massive buff to someone like Chemical because there is that like shift, and I've been in both places where I've had like where I did the shot calling and then in this position where like I started to get better at the game, like around Halo 5 is like when I really started to blossom a bit. And like like I couldn't shot call anymore once I started like getting better mechanically because you're so hyper focused um on how you're playing in the game that like you can't put any mental energy towards like directing other people in the game. So there was a certain point where even I had to like shift back, let someone else, do the shot calling just so I could hyper focus on the game. It's tough to have both skills.
Yeah, it's nice to have. He definitely did some good shot calling for us last season and being a positive force and whatnot. And Priest will always tell everyone everything that's going on. They're definitely a big buff to have on your team. So, number 4, I think I'm going to go ahead and squeeze Lux's team in here. I don't know if that's where they belong. Is that 4?
I think that's fair.
Yeah, they're a good
I
team.
think
So
that's
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna squeeze them in there, and that would be Lux, Gingy, Tommy Westside, and Lomain. I don't really have a description for them, but I'm just gonna say I'm really glad to see Lux sign up and play. Gingy too. It's good to see him come back. Tommy as well. So that's 3 players that we didn't have last season that signed up this season. So we're really all 4 of them with Lomain. So Lux always has a flair for the dramatic. He's a really good player. He likes to clip for him too, but whenever it comes down to being competitive and win, he's going to lock in. So I feel like between him, Gingy, and Tommy, they'll be really good. I would think Lux would run the ball. I don't know. Um, but either way, they definitely have a good trio in there, and they should definitely be a lock for the playoffs, I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes sense to me. I feel like I feel Lux would be probably the best person to run the ball there, and yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I mean, first off, like, I feel like getting there's the trio of him, Jinji, and Tommy Westside alone, just like is um that was really unexpected. And yeah, I mean, I think it will take a little bit of time for Jinji and Tommy to like kind of, you know, get their bearings, like maybe on the game type or just kind of like readjust a little bit. But like we know that like Jinji can, catch up pretty fast if he wants to. And then I feel like Tommy has always been, like, even if he plays at that C level or like that like low B tier level, um, he's gonna be doing his job and like what he's gonna be doing what Lux paid for. It does kind of it does rely on low main on where they are, where their ceiling is, but uh, I'm not really too worried about that. Like I feel like they'll probably adjust quick too. I think it really all comes down to where does this team want to go? Because that's like all of the players on this team can be so high or so low on like how much effort they decide to put into the game. It's really up to them. If they want to win a ship this season, they can. It'll just take them some like actual dedication for them to like become good at the game. But they have the choice. And then they can have a very a low bar too, where they just decide they don't want to take the season that seriously, and they just kind of stick around where they're at right now, and maybe just f around and go from there. But so it's really up to them.
Yeah, I could see this team sort of just being like a chill and relaxed team that just sort of fucks around, sees where that gets them, see if they win a few games, see if they don't, and then if they can make it to playoffs, assuming they don't like fuck around too much and lose some games. I could see basically this team doing like a 180 if they make it to the playoffs and just sort of becoming like a death machine and just farming everyone. Because Lux might be the most infuriating player to play against. Because how he just goes, usually if he has the opportunity, he just goes for like your spawns and then plays for passes constantly. You always have to be worrying about passing with him and his team. It's I could see this team being like a complete fucking like nightmare to play against because of the playmaking.
Yeah, I agree.
And next we have in third place is the Clip Farmers themselves. It's Ace Spence, Fanciest Pants, Boss Tycoon, and Smurf. And Lux says this is just a bully team of tanks who go forward and rely on the game to break so they can win games. That's it. Boss has experience with Ace Spence, or they won a reach season in recent years, and Fancy has chemistry with Ace Spence. But this team lacks a lot of things on the defensive side and running side. Outside of them exit lagging or whatever they're going to do to secure a ship, they fall short. I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't know about the lack of defense part. I think Ace Spence is a really good defender. Boss may need a little time to get back on his bearings, and Fancy is just he's a good defender because of how passive he is. He doesn't really rush or anything. He's gonna back up and hammer bounce to kill a runner or to back them up or whatever. But this team is definitely a bully team. We scrimmed them last night, and they definitely can pound you into the spawn pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, yeah, I don't agree with either of those like statements too much. It's like I don't think I don't think they're lacking in defense. I don't think they're lacking in running even. I mean, Ace Spence, like, and especially like when he's running a lot, like Ace Spence can be, to me, one of the best runners in the game. Like to that like pseudo novice level of like he can just make things happen by himself and win rounds by himself. So I don't think they're necessarily lacking that. Obviously, I'm assuming at least Smurf's going to be the main runner there. Um, but I don't think they're lacking in either of those by any means. And I mean, obviously, like I have seen Boss improve a lot throughout like the past week. It seems like they're picking, and they're another player that is very quick to kind of come back to form. Yeah, maybe they won't be like, the like a top tier player or anything, but he doesn't need to do that. They have Ace Spence and Fancy, and then Smurf has improved a lot over the past couple seasons as well. So I mean, this was actually kind of like my hot take, first place team personally. Um, but I could see the concerns with like if Boss doesn't come back to form. If maybe like Smurf is just like a weak enough player to like be taken advantage of. But I mean, between Spence and Fancy should have never happened. We've been trying to block this duo for quite some time now, and it finally happened. Um, so yeah, I mean, it'll be cool. It's a cool team to see. That's for sure.
Yeah, I have my concerns about who's going to run this team. I'm going to assume it's going to be Smurf, but who knows? I don't really have any tanking concerns because obviously you have like Ace Spence and Fancy. Ace Spence who like is won MVPs in the past.
Yeah.
Um, I don't have like many concerns besides from just like running. Like defensive thing, like I don't agree with that. I think this team is actually going to be fine defensively. Boss, like when I've played with him customs the other day, he actually seemed to be doing really well with the sword and picking it up and being pretty decent. So like I actually think this team might be number one if they sort of all hit their peaks and if Smurf doesn't, I guess, troll. That makes sense. I don't really have that many concerns with this team.
Well, I
Yeah.
have a concern, And if A Spence and Smurf like running this season, they can both go fuck themselves because they wouldn't do that last season, and we were dead last. So if y'all start running a lot this season, I'll haunt your nightmares or something. But yeah, Boss just has that scummy latency from West Coast, so he's really spongy and it's hard to kill him, and it's perfect for the sword on this game because he can just survive your hammer swing and lunge in. But yeah, either way, these guys are definitely going to be going for the plays and the highlights. So at number 2, we have KD's team, which is KD, Zim, Aware Mosquito, and Panther Lily. And Luck says Zim practices. Yeah, I know what he said, but he went for a steal at 250, so he might. Aware is actually good and makes playoffs and ships often. Yeah, he does. Panther goes for a little bit much, but he's also a good push forward tank. KD is in such a good spot to run the ball here that I can see this team going places if they communicate and get on the right page. Because if they do this, they won't get rolled by A Spence's team. And if they don't, I see A Spence's team beating them. KD turns any team that she's on into a machine. Always with the good outlet passes or offensive passes. Always with a plan or a backup plan. It's just always a machine whenever she takes over a team, whether she's captain or not. It's actually pretty cool to see her do that. And then Zim, he's definitely a formidable player that can run the ball, although I see KD running the ball so he can tank. When he last played, he very much enjoyed tanking, but we only really were successful if you ran, so he kind of hated that. Aware is serviceable. I mean, he could definitely step up as a third, racked him up a lot of kills. And Panther Lily made a lot of improvement last season on Novice's team and playing in late league before that. So definitely a playoff contender right here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would rate them quite two, but yeah, I do think they're in like the upper echelon of a lot of these teams. I mean, Zim. I mean, I guess my concern would be basically Zim. That's like my big question mark. He hasn't played the thruster game type yet, but that being said, if we are comparing this to Halo 5 a little bit, Zim was he was an absolute monster in Halo 5. Obviously there's a lot of differences there, but it doesn't take him that long to get there, to get back to that point. I mean, he was basically right back to his tier of play within the first season that he played in Infinite. So although it's a question mark, my confidence is there. It's just a matter of like, will he play in those in the customs, and will he play out for scrims and stuff? We'll see. And the other two I think are really solid. Panther kind of plays the way that KD likes playing. Panther likes going for the wraps. KD likes going for the passes. So yeah, it should be an interesting. Yeah, I think it will be. I think this will be a pretty solid team.
I think this team might be like the ultimate ceiling team because if you can get like Aware from season 2, and then get like Panther to be good enough to be like maybe like a C type player, and Zim actually practices, I think this team could just be a fucking monster. Because at that point, like maybe your worst player is like Aware, who is on like a really good day is maybe like a C plus type player. So like, I mean, I think this is pure ceiling team. I think floor is still good. I obviously depends on like how good Aware and Zim all of them mesh.
Mm-hmm.
And then at number 1 is Solace's team, which is Solace, Spoon, Grunt, and Mungo. And Lux says, yeah, sorry, sure you overspent on Mungo, but you got Grunt for 10. This team could have been even better, which is scary. Spoon is still as well, bringing in that playmaking style that this team could use with Mungo and Solace. Grunt is a great solid pickup as a tank here. Look at Avengers team. They got a CCF. Solace got a CCD with like half the credits. That's all there is to say. This team is going to reach the finals unless they run into my team before that, and that's the truth. Looks like a fun team to play with as well. Spoon's definitely going to run for this team, that's for sure. And then Solace is definitely S tier. He's a really good lead tank. So they've definitely got the tanking, they got the running, and they got the playmaking. Got plenty of fucking defense too. So as Rage More Nerd would say, there's no weak point in my game for this team.
Yeah, Yeah, this was like the picture perfect blueprint of like what I'm talking about here. The strong player, and then you have the most like solid other players that like you could ask for. I really, really like this team. This is my number two team for sure. And even like it's a pretty tight race between this and Ace Spence. And so yeah, this. I mean, I don't have like much to say other than like I think this is going to be a good team. Salas built a really like the squad that he wanted, and then he will also be a good voice for this team too. Like Salas knows how he wants to approach the game. He knows, he kind of knows what he wants the other players on this team to do, and I think he'll be good at directing that into a pretty like straightforward direction. So, yeah, I'm really excited about this team. Excited for my my boy, and it'll be a cool squad to see.
I think my concern with this team is maybe the tanking a little bit. I don't know, like I haven't seen Spoon tank much because usually when I see him play, he's with a sword. But like this is by far the best like floor team without a doubt. Um, they might not have like the most potential. I don't know, like maybe if with Solace playing Grunt and whoever's that like third tank could really get better with him playing, but my only concern is just like the ceiling. That's about it with this. Like I would say they're probably my number two or three team, only because like I just worry about that ceiling. But who knows? Maybe things will work out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like, yeah, I just don't think um, but I don't think like anybody on this team is like when it really comes down to it and like you're looking at matchups, like no one on this team is like being taken advantage of really. Whereas like a lot of the other teams, they have a player or two that like is just gonna they're probably just gonna get like kind of steamrolled and they're gonna be the ones to lose their team the game. And we've seen this again like any team that doesn't have like a competent fourth loses their team's games. And so the fact that there really is there's no weak point here, there's no player that is just gonna like straight up sandbag is such a such a good thing for them.
So yeah, that's a rundown of all the teams, and this is a record-breaking season for Infinite so far, and definitely have had more teams this season than the previous season. So it's definitely great to see that. So moving on, just a couple more things before we wrap up. Just wanted to remind everyone that I'm hosting a preseason rush this Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So bring your team out, test them out, see how they stack up against the competition. I'm not sure what format I'm going to run. Right now, I only have 4 teams, but depending on I'm sure more will sign up before Saturday. But I've been kind of liking the best of 3 single elim, where you just you play each team in a best of 3, so that way you get a 2-game minimum at least, and they kind of wrap up quicker. So, and then I just want to touch real quick and thank Avenger for the Grifball Astronomical Showcase Series event that he set up right at the end of signups. He had a lot of prizes he gave away. A. Spence and DJ Blue were casting it, and it was the first stream for the Play Grifball Twitch channel, and there was like 80 viewers, I believe, at one point, maybe more. So it was really successful, and I very much am appreciative to Avenger and Spotato as well. Spotato was a real professional, help setting up the production and stuff like that, and Encott was a big help too with the camera work. So shout out to all them guys for what they did for bringing that event to us. Always love to see it.
Yeah, that was honestly that was like one of the best ran like one-off events that like I've ever seen. So like huge props to him. Like I know it was a lot of people's like first times doing things. It was first time Avenger had ever run an event, first time people were doing like stream stuff. It was just so cool to see a community member who wasn't not involved with like setting up any of the the main season or anything. Just them wanting to do something really cool for the community and then them accomplishing that in like a really cool way. So yeah, huge props to Avenger. That was so awesome to see, and like I hope we get to see more because that as someone who is like an event runner and somebody who likes doing these like one-off things, there's nothing better to see than that. So yeah, I appreciate it too.
Yeah, so moving on, I guess all we really have left is outro and shout out. So, best part of the show, depending on who you ask. But yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Mav. This guy's been working with me on this podcast since the beginning. He might not have been a choice everyone agreed with, and I heard some bitching about it early on, but he shows up, he's dependable, he's the fact checker, the stat checker, and he always makes sure someone isn't full of shit when they're saying something, so I'm very appreciative of that. Shout out to Rage More Nerve for signing up and playing this season. It's great to see Rage back and memeing with everybody else. Such an unstoppable force. And then, of course, to Ace Spence and Deathcrawler for all they do. These guys definitely are two legs that walk the community around and do all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, that's all I got.
I mean, I just want to say thank you for having me on the podcast. I know it's been an interesting road. I'm happy that we could bring this back. Obviously, it's been maybe a little difficult finding people to, come on. Hopefully that changes after this, since this is been 2 hours?
It's pretty close. It'll definitely be a record breaker.
Sorry, I'm like trying to do a scrim with my team while also talking at the same time, and it's kind of difficult.
Oh, it's okay. It's all right. Yeah, so Pop Tart, you got anything?
Yeah, so I mean, of course, I can never, give enough props to, the people running the show, Deathcrawler, Unoplex, Mav, Ace Spence, you know, all of you have done so much work, in Infinite. And I know it's been like a long road, especially for Ace Spence, like, running things by himself for a long time, and I know that comes with like its woes for sure, and sometimes the hardships can like outweigh what the perceived benefits are. So I know I just have like unlimited like respect for anyone that takes the time out of their daily lives to run the show here and to do all that they do for the community, because even though like I don't always agree with decisions and people don't always like people don't always come to agreements, um it takes so much work, and it takes so much more work than most people realize, and it's a lot of pressure to to try to satisfy like all of these people and try to create a good product that people want to keep coming back for. And we wouldn't be around, if it wasn't for the people taking charge and getting things done. So yeah, I appreciate you guys so much, for doing what you do. Like we have, I think, one of the best like admin teams that we've had in like a decade. Like that's not like that's barely an exaggeration. I cannot think of like a more well-rounded team than you have now. And so once again, Noplex, Mav, A Spence, and Death, yeah, and Priest, of course, as well. But thank you for all you do. Thank you, Noplex and Mav, for setting up this podcast. Bringing me on to talk about this, and then also just to like I know I messaged a lot of community members. I talked to a lot of you guys. Appreciate all of you for coming back. And I appreciate all of you that like have created this really solid network of players that enables us to keep these seasons going, to keep people informed, and then to keep people coming back. So appreciate all of you guys. Thank you so much.
Definitely,
Maybe
man.
the last positive words I ever hear from Pop-Tart.
Yeah, definitely thank you for coming on as a guest. And I think we shouldn't have too many problems finding a guest, but what I've been doing is just kind of asking who wants to be on the show. But now I'm probably going to start poking people and messaging them and see if they want to be on, because the list of guests that I had, I've kind of went through them all. So, well, we're about at 2 hours here, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you for listening to the podcast once again, and we'll see you on the next episode. Until then, see you on the court.
See ya.